This is the Glarry GTL semi-hollow guitar in orange, although I don't really think it's orange, but we'll get to that later. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to the people at Glarry for letting me try this guitar out. They actually reached out to me maybe a year or two ago asking me if I was interested, and I really hadn't heard anything about them at the time, and so I just kind of passed on it. And then I saw a couple of other YouTubers trying their guitars out doing demos, and I thought, oh, well, I missed that vote, but I reached out to them again and said, hey, I'm still interested if you can still send me something, and I didn't hear back from them. Of course, this was months later, but yeah, at the beginning of last month, they reached out once again and they said, hey, we're sending out another kind of round of guitars if you're still interested. And so I said, sure. So I picked this one out and here we are. So from the time I gave them the green light to send me a guitar, it only took about a week to get here. So really fast shipping. I'm going to show you the unboxing now. It basically just came in a cardboard box, not a lot of protection. It did have some styrofoam around the edges. It also came in this sort of sheen, I don't know what you call material, but really thin type foam bag, which is similar to other guitars I purchased in the past. The gig bag leaves a lot to be desired. Although it's a gig bag in form, it's really thin and I wouldn't trust it for much protection other than just kind of a dust cover. The strap that it came with seems sort of cheap and thin, although that's pretty much what I would expect. I personally don't need the strap, but I can understand why it would be a good thing to have if you're just starting off or if you're a beginner. It also comes with a cable, a pick, and some Allen keys for adjusting your truss rod and your saddles. Alright, let's get into the details. I'm going to categorize these things into pros, cons, and sort of neutral. Things that aren't pros or cons, but I think are important to know. I will say overall, I think this is a great guitar for the money. I would definitely put it on par with, say, Squier Affinities and Bullets, maybe even up there with the upper end Squiers like the classic vibes. I think it's really well put together. I don't have a lot of complaints, and overall, like I said, I'm really impressed. So with that, let's get into the pros. First of all, the price. I mean, for $120, you just can't beat it. This particular model ranges from $110 to $120, depending on the color, I guess. You know, for that price, like I said, the value you get, the things you get with the guitar, especially as a starter guitar or even as a platform guitar to make upgrades to, I think it's a great value. The second, and I guess this one's kind of subjective, but it's the color. Although it's listed as orange, I definitely think it's more of a coral color. It reminds me of something from maybe the Fender Custom Shop or one of those Chicago Music Exchange limited run colors. And like I said, you may like more of an orange color, but I really like this color and I think it's like a coral. It's just sort of unique and I like it. Next is a string through or top loading bridge plate. This one actually comes with the option to string the guitar from the top of the body instead of from the back like you see on typical Telecasters. And this is cool because it can potentially give you different types of sounds. Another plus about this guitar, at least in my opinion, is that it doesn't have one of those ugly black plastic inserts in the truss rod adjustment hole. Just a personal preference, but you'll see those a lot on the lower end Squiers, and unfortunately it's just sort of indicative that you have a cheaper guitar. Next is the fact that it has two string trees. This is not a vintage design, it's more of a modern upgrade. It helps to give the D and the G strings more of a downward pressure on the back of the nut and thus helps with tuning stability. Also, this guitar comes with grooved barrel saddles. Although they're not compensated to help with intonation, they do provide a guide for your strings, which is kind of nice. And the fretwork is pretty darn nice. I only found one or two spots with some buzzing issues. The worst spot is on the 14th fret on the low E string, as you can hear, hopefully. But the rest of the way up the neck and on the other strings, really no issues. The only other minor spot is up here on the B string on the 3rd fret. A little bit of buzzing. But that's unfortunate because that's where you play your cowboy chords like your G, C, D, stuff like that. Other than that, like I said, the fretwork is really good. And that's really saying something considering a recrown would cost you about $100 to $200 and a total new fret job would cost maybe $400 to $500. The last thing on the pros list is the pickups. They sound surprisingly well for being so cheap. I would imagine they're ceramic and there's nothing wrong with that. They're not the greatest sounding pickups in the world, they're not the worst. But they have a really good tonal quality, as hopefully you can tell by the intro video. For me, the biggest thing is that they're not too muddy and dark, and they're also not too harsh. Which brings me to the top of the cons list. One fatal flaw with this particular guitar, and the pickups, or at least the wiring, is the fact that the middle position does not work at all, which I'll demonstrate right now. I've got this plugged into a small amp in the room, and I'll turn it up a little bit, and you can see that I've got on the bridge position pickup, and you can hear it. Hopefully you can hear the amp and not just the microphone that I have. But now I'm going to switch it back and forth from the bridge to the middle, and you're going to hear no change at all. And I wish I could show you better. So there's no change at all. There's nothing happening when I switch the blade switch from the treble or the bridge to the middle position. When I switch to the neck, you can definitely hear a difference. Going back and forth. So really all you hear is a difference in the bridge pickup and the neck pickup. And so the middle position does not work at all. And I would say that's a pretty big flaw in the guitar. I believe this is probably a one-off, and that most of the guitars they ship out probably work just fine. This just happens to be a random flaw in this guitar, which is pretty unfortunate. Another con, and this is very minor, but I found some wood chips underneath different plates and guards on the guitar. One spot was on the back underneath the neck plate. It also has this cool, I guess, sort of a plastic plate underneath the metal one. And that's probably a personal preference thing, but I found some wood chips there sort of randomly, and then underneath the pickguard I also found wood chips under there. So they probably just drilled and just slapped the guards and the plates on without dusting it off. And again, it's very easy to clean off, just a minor thing. Another minor con to the guitar is the fact that it had some very small blemishing defects. I would attribute these mainly to knots in the wood and the fact that these sort of come through the finish. Again, nothing major, very minor, and I would say overall the finish is very good. Another bad thing about the guitar, which has a big impact on tone, but is what I would expect from a guitar of this price point, is the nut. It's cheap plastic, it's not cut very well. It could stand to just have a new nut installed, but that's par for the course. The last of the cons, and I debated about what category to put this in, is the neck finish. It basically has no finish on the neck at all. Maybe a sanding sealer, and this could be good if you wanted to wear the neck in and make it look relic, or if you wanted to stain it or refinish it, but for the sake of protection, it's not really good. Which brings me to another point. As I was playing the guitar, I was getting these black marks on the fretboard. I guess it was coming off the strings or off the oils in my fingers, but I was getting those marks that you see on those like really old 50s butterscotch blonde Telecasters with the wear on the fretboard. But I just didn't feel that was good for this brand new guitar. It's a testament to the fact, again, that I don't think there's any real finish on the neck. And finally, onto those sort of neutral items. The wiring in this guitar is pretty cheap, as you would expect. It's something that you would probably want to upgrade in the future if you hold on to the guitar. I'm going to show you some pictures underneath the pickguard. The potentiometers are mini pots, the wiring, like I said, is pretty cheap, and the blade switch I found online for like $3. And I couldn't figure out myself how to fix it or rewire it to get the middle position of the pickups to work. I'm imagining there's some wire loose or it was miswired somehow, maybe wired to a wrong connection. But like I said, I don't have the know-how to fix it. So if I hold on to the guitar, if I keep it, I'm probably just going to upgrade to a better blade switch and better potentiometers, potentially better wiring, and maybe one day better pickups. Another one of those sort of neutral things was the setup. When I got the guitar out of the box, one of the saddles had fallen down, so I had to raise it up to adjust the string height. I also had to put some relief in the neck via the truss rod, but that was a positive indication that the truss rod actually worked. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I would say that any guitar being shipped to you would have some shifting going on during transit. So even the most expensive guitar, if you get it out of the box, it's gonna probably need to be tuned up and maybe set up. And I would say that any guitar player from beginner to expert should learn to work on their guitars and set them up. Another neutral thing is the tuners. They're not the worst, they do hold tune pretty well, but it's something that you might want to upgrade. Also something to note, there are these sort of strange blue circular film things on the back of the tuners, so don't confuse that with discoloration. Also, there is a plastic film on the pickguard and the neck pickup, which is a little tricky to remove. In this clip I'm going to show you, you'll see that I've removed the screws from the pickguard, which makes it a little easier. If you don't do that, you'll get the plastic hung up on the screws, and you'll also probably get it hung up on the volume and tone knobs, but as I just realized, those just sort of pull off. And the very last of the neutral items is the neck profile. You might love it, you might hate it, but this thing is pretty thick. I would definitely consider this to be a baseball bat style profile. I have a Telecaster with, I believe, a 59 Les Paul profile neck, and I think it's pretty thick. Probably not as thick, I guess, as a 58, but this thing is thicker. So if you think you might want something skinnier, you may want to reconsider this neck, or at least be aware. Alright, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
I don't have it figured out, but I take